welcome back to our podcast, Busting Addiction and Its Myths. This is Season 4, Episode 5. Our podcast series is sponsored by Safe House Rehab Thailand, where safety has been in our name, in our DNA from the beginning. Take a closer look at safehouserehab.com and you'll see why we absolutely outperform traditional rehabs when it comes to diagnostics, wellness technology, and aftercare. I'm Bruno J., your host, and today I'm pleased to have as our special guest Tomas, originally from Germany, and now planning to live here in Thailand at least for a little while. Welcome, Tomas, and thank you for being part of our series dedicated primarily to the families of addicts and alcoholics to help them recover from this deadly disease that affects everyone in the family, and to reveal insights that will give suffering families some hope for a brighter future. So welcome aboard, Tomas.
Bruno J., so happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Tomas, I want to make this into 2 episodes while we have you here with us today. The first episode of, say, 10 or 15 minutes we'll devote to the part where we call our personal adventures before we woke up. Then I'd like the second half to be about what happened to wake you up, how you're staying clean and sober today, and what are your ambitions for the future. I would also like our audience to know more about how Al-Anon has helped you and your family, if that's the case. So let's start with part 1. Walk us through your early years and how you first discovered the mind-altering substance that started you on the path.
So the early years and how I discovered the mind-altering substance that... the early years, I am from a family of alcoholics. My dad was a drinker. His best friend was the bottle. When I look in the family album, in the family pictures, you will not find a picture of my dad without a bottle in his hand. So, and when I was a teenager, I moved to Poland, from Poland to Germany, to take care of my dad, whose alcoholism got very bad by that time. He was having the sleepless nights and would, drink himself into oblivion and was very violent, and it was just disgusting. So, and as a teenager, I could draw the conclusion that what happens in this house must have something to do with the alcohol and with the drinking. So I made a promise to myself that I will not drink or drug. And I stayed with the promise until I was 24 years old. That was in 99. And I fell in love with a hippie girl. And it was the hippie girl's birthday, and she was drinking champagne and smoking marijuana. So I said, I want to be cool like this girl. So let me have a spliff of the joint and let me drink some champagne to it. Now, what it did to me was I lost my mind the same minute I've tasted it.
Right away.
Right away, I had what they call the allergic reaction. I had the shivers and the heat, and all of a sudden I was capable of dancing and singing, and I loved it. And I was Barry White and Stevie Wonder, singing to the girl. And 10 minutes later, I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to die. And the girl is very scared. What is up with you? Are you okay? Shall I call the ambulance? No, baby, it's going to be okay. Let's finish this bottle of champagne, So we finished this bottle of champagne that night, and that put me on a course for 13 years, pretty much of, daily usage. Non-stop, pretty much.
Just like that?
Just like that.
Okay, all right. So I think you did a great job of explaining how you got to that point. It was an immediate reaction, which is highly unusual in a lot of cases. But it did what it did. Then tell me, how did your use of your drug of choice, which was sounded like alcohol and marijuana, or what were the combinations that you enjoyed the most? And we all have them,
We all have them. It started out with alcohol and marijuana. I would drink alcohol to, get a little funny, marijuana to calm me down. Then I had some problems in my marriage later on, so I saw a therapist. And the therapist asked me, hey, Mr. Thomas, do you take any drugs? And I was like, yeah, I smoke marijuana. He was like, okay, you cannot smoke, but you can drink, not a problem. So since then, I was, I had probably a bottle or two of, at least wine or vodka, a day. Every day, pretty much.
Yeah.
And then about probably 6 months or so of that, cocaine came into it, Viagra came into it.
All right.
So
booze wasn't enough at that point.
Booze was not enough at this point. It would have to be a mix.
Okay.
It would have to be a mix of all of it.
What were you doing for a living, or were you in school, or what were you doing outside of using drugs?
Well, I was a DJ and a music producer. I'm DJing since an early age. I started DJing when I was 16. I got very successful at the age of, in my early 20s, had some hit records worldwide. So I was touring pretty much around the world and DJing, DJing and producing records.
And how did your alcohol and drug abuse affect your job and your performance?
Oh, it worked great.
Yeah, it helped.
And it helped tremendously until it didn't, At first, I mean, especially, to be honest, especially the marijuana part is something that was very helpful at the beginning. And then it was probably 3-4 years. And then I lost control of it, I would say. In the beginning, it helped because alcohol is an antidepressant. You can keep yourself, awake with it. Or when you're running out of energy, it will give you some energy. But then when you do a bottle of Hennessy, you cannot control your emotions any longer, or you cannot control your speech. So it worked great, but then it stopped. And it's how they say, first I drank the alcohol, then the alcohol drank itself, and then the alcohol drained me, drank me, and then, the most challenging part was actually to find an exit strategy, because that was actually the most challenging, So, but anyway, it worked great.
Okay, and so describe your bottom to me. What happened?
My bottom, I would say my bottom was my 36th birthday.
Okay.
And to be honest, I think there are several bottoms. I'm an alcoholic, and for an alcoholic, it's not only a disease of the mind, the obsessive thinking, and also, of the spiritual malady, which probably is a human condition, and also, an allergy of the body. So there are some substances that I just can't have, but and I would say that there have been various bottoms in pretty much every area of life, even before, quitting drinking. But I remember it was my 36th birthday, so it was double 18. So I was like, okay, I'm double adult right now. I can do whatever I want to do. And I had a kid, and the kid was in a hospital, very sick. And I'm trying to celebrate my birthday in a hospital.
Are you married at this point?
No, I was not. I had a previous marriage that fell apart. I was.
But you had a child.
I had a child with a woman who I tried to learn from a non-alcoholic how not to drink, which of course was a disaster.
Right.
So my 36th birthday, my kid is in the hospital, and it's my birthday, and I see that the people who I love hate me from the bottom of their heart.
And why do they hate you?
And I could not understand. Well, I guess because, with alcoholism and with the active use of alcohol, and even with the disease comes, I guess the selfishness and the acting out and the lying and the cheating and the stealing and all of it. So they just would hate me, and that, broke my heart.
Okay. So would you say you became undependable and unreliable and hurtful? And what was that bottom like? I mean, what were you walking away from when you hit the bottom? What did you not want anymore?
To be honest with you, terms like being dependable or showing up is something that I consciously got to look at only in recovery. Before that, I had no idea. I was
Okay.
very successful DJ and music producer, probably a workaholic. I always showed up for my job, okay,
Right,
yeah, because, you know, I just loved it. And other than that, I think I never cared about anything or anyone or,
Okay.
you know, I mean, I loved my kids, I loved my daughter, but I never had an idea how to show up for everything, for
Yeah,
anything,
right.
how to be open, how to talk about emotions. I remember when I was 28, I was in therapy, and this therapist asked me, "So, Mr. Thomas, what do you feel?" And I thought she's trying to insult me, because I was thinking that emotions is something that people only make up so they have something to discuss about, you know. So I had to learn how to connect emotions to physical sensations. I had to learn about, you know, I had to learn everything, like even to be connected to my body. I had a huge wall between my head and my body. I was living only in my head, and this is a way to live that is very painful to oneself and to others. So what I walked away for was a life of unconsciousness, a life of I would say, you know, a life of acting out on every urge, a life lived on impulses, a life on instincts without, you know, without looking. Yeah.
So you said, "I don't want this anymore," right? I mean,
I have
what
to
was
be
that
honest
moment?
with you. It was a little different. I gotta tell the story. You know, it's a part of my story, and I gotta tell it. You know, my kid had a heavy accident, right? And the doctors told the kid is not gonna live. And I prayed to God, because I had no other idea what to do. The doctors told the kid is not gonna live. So and the kid was in a coma, and I was in the hospital, and I could not get up. It was so much pain, and so I was praying like 5 days a week. I'm like, "God, show me what to do, show me what to do, show me what to do. I know you are God, you gave your son Jesus, whatever, but I don't think I can survive here." And after 5 days of praying, or 6 days I prayed through, I heard a voice that was the voice from my heart, which is the same that is God, because, you know, God is love, and we are all God in man and female, you know, so we are all children of God. And I heard this voice from my heart, and the voice told me, "You get sober and I take care of the rest."
Okay.
So by that time, I knew that my job is to get sober, but then I had no idea how to do it. Absolutely no
So what
clue.
did you do next?
It was funny. I first of all, I think that the most important thing is I really made an honest decision to get sober. Like, really from my heart, I was like, okay, this is enough. I'm really willing to look at it.
Okay.
And by that time, of course, when you make a decision and when you decide to do something or change something in your life, life will unravel in ways, and it will bring you everything you need. So first came an old friend of mine who was a very famous rapper, and also a Christian minister, and he came to my house, stayed with me, baptized me. He was like, "Thomas, you are one of the best DJs in the world, but 8 of 10 club owners tell that you've fallen off stage because you're drunk and high. You have to stop." Okay, so he stayed with me for a couple of weeks, but I still had no idea. And then a couple of weeks later, a friend of mine showed up at my door, who told me that he had serious problems in his marriage. His wife kicked him out, so he asked me to stay at my studio. And also he had to go to Alcoholics Anonymous. And I was like, "Okay, sure, you can stay at my studio. It's not a problem, but I have only one requirement. You take me to Alcoholics Anonymous." And this is where I learned how to do it.
Uh-huh. So that was an amazing coincidence, wasn't it? That you ended up with somebody that took you immediately, almost immediately, to an AA meeting. And did you take to it right away?
I don't think there are coincidences in life. I do believe that if you make a decision from your heart to get sober, you are allowed to. It's your birthright to be joyous and free and happy. And, you know, we live in a world where, you know, a lot of stuff that is not good for us is not talked about. Of course, alcohol and drugs is one of it, but also the whole sex thing, the whole naked people you see on advertisements and so on and so forth. I do believe that when you make up your heart and make up your mind and seriously make a decision to change something in your life, life will bring your way everything you need for that path. So I don't think it was a coincidence. I think it was more kind of, I would say, well, there's a saying, you know, when the student is ready, the teacher appears.
Sure,
and so is my experience.
And did you continue to go to Alcoholics Anonymous? Have you stayed with the program?
I did.
And have you ever relapsed?
I have. It took me about 6 months in the program of work with a sponsor, of doing the steps over and over again to look at my patterns. I think I had 6 months sober and went out over a resentment I had for my kid's mother.
Sure.
So, but I went back to the work, you know, I went back to the work every time and stayed with it. And it's a way of life, yeah.
So what is the essence of Alcoholics Anonymous to you?
The essence of Alcoholics Anonymous to me is the search for a spiritual life, which means that as an alcoholic, my drinking is only a symptom, and I have to look at my symptom, look at my patterns, and create a life that it's worth living for me, so that I don't ever have to drink again.
And so you've been sober how long now?
7.5 years.
7.5 years. You're well on your way. Can I make an observation for you?
Please.
Because you're really doing very, very well. You're saying all the right things and doing all the right things. So this is by no means anything other than a perspective. I can share with you that in the early going, in the first, say, 10 years, 5 to 10 years, it was about getting and staying sober. And then the transition from there to living an inspired and joyful life is what I aspired to. And it sounds to me like when you say the AA way of life, that you're really, really on your way. What would you say to...
I am so grateful for this suggestion. I'm at the point in my recovery where I see how my alcoholism affects every area of my life. It's a lot of pain that goes with that, but also it is enough. My heart is big enough to kind of insist on a good life, and there arise questions that can be tricky. How do I have fun? What do I love? And I have to, I have to put some effort into that. But it's a very, very good thing. Thank you for your
What advice would you give a mom or dad or the addict to prevent the cycle of addiction and pain, or at least catch it before it gets to a desperate point? If you have a mother, because our podcasts are mostly for people who are mothers and fathers, relatives, loved ones of addicts and alcoholics, on the premise that, an active alcoholic or addict is probably not going to listen to what we have to say. So we have to have some sort of intervening voice, if you will. What would you say to a mom or dad or even an addict who's trying to recover to help prevent the cycle of addiction and pain? What should they be thinking about?
Well, this is two different things. A mom and a father of an alcoholic, I would so highly recommend Al-Anon. The disease of alcoholism is so painful and brings so much destruction, not only to the alcoholic, but also to his loved ones.
Right.
I would warmly recommend Al-Anon and get people to talk about, because addiction is so strong, because there is, or can be so strong, and the pain that's with it, because we don't, when we start sharing it, and when we start seeing that there are others who go through the same stuff, then we are not alone anymore.
Right.
So getting out of the isolation, I would say, is the first thing. And then for an active addict, personally, I don't think it's possible to stop before the pain is big enough, or the pain is bigger than the joy we're getting out of using the substance.
That's a good insight.
So whenever we're ready to start, then we start, you know. But to an active an addict who is an active addiction, I would say you are allowed to have a good life, even if you don't believe you can stop, even if you are ashamed of what you're doing. You are not alone. There's plenty of people doing the same, and it's your birthright to be happy. It's your birthright to be happy. It's very painful to be in active addiction. If you want to stop, you can. You just have to, make a decision.
Can you help me with a distinction that I've made myself, and that is the illusion built into the United States Constitution, unfortunately, says that we have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. My observation is that, and it's supported by science and other experts as well, is that the direct pursuit of happiness is an illusion. What we should be pursuing is worthiness, and happiness is an outcome of our worthiness. Can you comment on that?
Most of us, it's a challenge to distinguish between happiness and excitement. Happiness is something different than excitement. As someone who was living in active addiction for years, but also being from a dysfunctional family, I would say I'm very familiar to excitement, and I can get excitement very easily confused with happiness. So when I think, you know, the women, the alcohol, the money, the fame is happiness,
and that's pleasure, right?
A lot of time it can be excitement. It can be excitement. You know, most of the time happiness is for me, it can be something very different. It is something very different. You know, happiness is something different than excitement.
What about worthiness?
Excuse me?
Worthiness. Being a worthy human being.
You know, this is a challenging one. For someone out of a dysfunctional family, the feeling of unworthiness, of not being good enough, is such inbuilt in my thinking, and that, you know, this is a real challenging one. For me, it takes a lot of work to even see my own patterns.
Okay. Tell me about your personal experience in Al-Anon. You've talked to me a little bit about it, but what is your involvement in Al-Anon, and how does that? Why are you? I heard you say I'm a grateful member of Al-Anon or something.
Yes.
And by the way, I am too. So I have a little bit of empathy for that.
I came to Al-Anon for the first time when I was about 2 or 3 years sober, to check it out, and I didn't.
What brought you there, though?
Probably because someone who was sober for a long time told me, "Oh yeah, that's what you do. You get sober, you work through the AA steps, and you know, at some point when you're ready for Al-Anon, you do Al-Anon." So this is what got me in Al-Anon in the first place. It was when I was about 3 years sober, and I did not like it. In Germany, at least where I'm from, it's much more females in Al-Anon than men. Let's say 8 women, 2 men, is probably, you know. So, and I came in my first meeting, and the chicks started, you know, arguing about the format, and I was feeling so uncomfortable. Put on the plate, I did not go back.
But why did you go to Al-Anon to begin with? Did you have a person in your life?
Well, of course, all of my partners were alcoholics. Of course.
Okay. All right, that needs to be known.
My father was, starting with my father and my mother, who both died from drinking or the consequences of drinking. Most of my girlfriends was either active drug users or rageaholics.
Okay.
So yeah, exactly.
Okay. All right.
I guess so. Yeah, I guess at this time I was with this girl and she was still actively drinking, and I was, you know, trying to work through that.
Okay. All right. So, because it's the advice I often give to my friends who I sponsor is, look, chances are there's someone insane in your life right? Whether that person is insane because they're drinking or doing drugs or they're just plain crazy. And that we have to find a healthy detachment from the insanity in order to have peace and work the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous ourselves. Does that make sense?
I love Al-Anon, and as someone who is brought up in chaos, Al-Anon can be challenging because the way I perceive it is that the point of how I experience is like when we do steps in AA, we do it from the head. In Al-Anon, we do it from the heart. So for me, the point of detachment is to get in a quiet place, to get to a quiet place, a place of quietness, fulfillment, kind of owing an own power, being okay no matter what.
Full integration.
Full integration.
Okay.
For someone who's brought up in a dysfunctional family, it can be very challenging at last.
Yeah.
And not only I went to Al-Anon, but also I did ACA, and which is Adult Children of Alcoholics and Dysfunctional Families, which comes out of Al-Anon. At some point, you know, some people you saw that, you know, the adult children have all the same issues, pretty much. And I must tell you that this journey, I had to grieve for, I don't know, 2 or 3 years. I went through so much grief. It had to come out, but once it came out,
So there was pain involved.
Oh my goodness, how much pain is that, seeing your parents dying.
Sure.
You know, thinking that this is how the world goes. I was I was thinking that this is what men do. We just drink ourselves to death, and women also. It was so much pain and so much grief.
The Weltanschauung, the world outlook on the world, right?
That's correct.
And codependency. You must have learned a lot about codependency in your Al-Anon experience. Can you share about that?
Where do I start? After getting sober, of course, you know, after getting sober, we decide what to do. And some people just stay in this crazy world. And I mean, codependency, I like a description of codependency where it says, okay, codependency is me, or not being codependent is me letting you see who I am. But in order to do it, I need to learn to talk about emotions. I need to, you know, learn to communicate, how to tell my truth.
Right.
I need to learn how to nourish myself.
Right.
I need to learn how to take care of myself. There's so many, I mean, codependency is like so big.
It's an emotional chain to another human being, is it not?
Yes.
Yeah. Have you heard of the book Codependent No More by? Do you read it? Have you read it?
I was listening to it last night.
Okay.
Okay.
So, and I've written about it as well. I've been to seminars and this and that. Not you know, just like my life experience has been very much like yours, except maybe I'm a little old. So, one of the quick ways that I described it is, I am only okay if you're okay with me. If you're not okay with me, I am not okay.
I love
my personal emotional well-being is completely dependent on what you think of me, and my personal emotional well-being also depends on you doing what I want you to do.
You have a good talent for putting this. I love the way you put it.
So it's straight up American. You know, it's like it's just straight up, right?
I am only okay if you
are okay with me.
Are okay with me.
Right.
If you
are not okay with me, I am not okay with me.
Ah, my goodness.
Right? And I'm only okay if you're doing what I want you to do. That's another one. Because what happens is you live in the future all the time, worrying about what the next thing is. If you stay in today, just like we stay in AA, stay in today, what happens? The future disappears. The fear is gone. So this is a journey, as you all know, and I love the fact that you're able to express the struggles that you've had, because this is for our audience. This isn't just for you and me. You know, we have 2,000 people that listen to us now, so that's not too bad. I know it's a small number compared to your popularity, but the point is, if we help one person at a time, then that makes a big difference.
For me, the whole mission is if we get to help one person here, then that's a lot. Oh my goodness, knowing how painful the cycle of addiction is, how painful codependency is, how crazy we get, how crazy I still can get, in
a heartbeat.
In a heartbeat, sleepless nights, going crazy.
Okay, danke sehr.
Dankeschön.
Sehr gut. Very, very good. Thank you for tuning in today. It's my fervent hope we've given you new insight and new hope that will lighten your burden. For our hearts go out to all who suffer the effects of addictive disorder. Please give us your feedback at info@safehouserehab.com. By all means, ask us any question you like, and we'll answer on air if you will. And if you want to leave us your first name and city, we'll recognize you too, of course. This podcast is sponsored by safehouserehab.com, where we take a modern approach to recovery, something all families of those who suffer deserve. Tune in next week for more.